Welcome to the channel, everybody. Today we're going to finally look at the KATO SD40-2s. So this video is coming a couple weeks ahead of schedule. I was planning on doing the showdown of the Chargers this coming Tuesday, and power company just decided to show up and change my meter out with any warning and disconnected my power while my gaming PC was doing some rendering and caused some serious damage. I think my editing PC is down and out. So this is getting done on my iPad, and I'm going to be a little while out before I can get that video redone because there's a lot to go over in that. So I figured it was going to be easier just to kind of bust out the SD40-2s first here, because these are a whole bunch simpler to talk about. I really feel I need to get the SD40-2s from KATO done first, because we definitely need to look at the offerings from Scale Trains, and I have a whole lot to say about those. But if anyone has at all been on my channel, you're going to see these units all over the place. I have been running these for years, and I did recently just pick up this one from the most recent run of the KATO SD40-2s. But if there are any models on my layout that have been well tested and vetted for reliability, it's going to be these. 5088, I believe, was the second N scale engine, or like hobby grade engine, that I ever picked up. And it has been running for countless hours with very little maintenance. So, short story long, these are an excellent offering from KATO, but let's go ahead and jump in and look at the visuals. We'll talk about the frame, the electronics, and everything else after that. Okay, I got one of the previous run BNs in front of me here. This is probably my favorite BN unit I've got. This is 7036. And first thing I want to talk about is these have all been converted to microtrains couplers, and that is to make them a little more usable in the yard. Frankly, I don't have a big problem with the KATO couplers that come along with these, as long as you clip the little piece off of the horn. They tend to work pretty decently, especially with other KATO rolling stock. The other thing about them that I will say is they're very short and close, and so when you couple these together in consist, they really do look scale and nice. So unless you're doing a lot of yard switching with these, I honestly don't know if you need to change out the couplers. So that being said, just kind of keep it in your mind. This has also had a little bit of paint work done by me. These handrails were not painted factory. You'll see that on 6361. So that's something you might have to do if you want that kind of detail on your unit. And as we kind of move down this, I just want to give you an idea of some of this. It really is, for the price point, one of the nicer looking locomotives, and you just can't go wrong with an SD40-2. And I'm gonna wear my dust on this unit proud, because it has seen so much track time that it really does have a good place in my heart. So let's just keep looking at this. Notice all of the fine, intricate details that are molded in, and you honestly can see them pretty well without magnification. And the trucks on these units are just slammed. You are right down on top of it. There is little to no gap, and that is how an engine should be put together. It also comes down to the way the frame is held together. There is kind of a surround that goes around this, and I'll show it a little bit later, that kind of holds the frame together and takes up all of the extra gap under the engine, closes it up, and just makes it look scale as hell. So well done with that, KATO. That really pulls this unit together. And as we continue down this, very nice body paneling. It's all super scale. It stays nice and crisp the whole way through. And this run, compared to some of the older ones, and maybe we'll look at that next, they really got the paint super crisp. It kind of used to have a bit of a fade to it, and now it really does look nice. I think they killed this. Well, you can see it for sure on the Santa Fe's. They really came a long way on that. And we'll just kind of continue down here a little bit, get you back in focus. Very sturdy handrails on these. Excellent for a kid. You're going to be hard pressed to hurt these things short of dropping them. These are a well put together unit. I like handrails that stay attached. There's some older Atlas ones that you look at the wrong way and they fall off of. And again, you can really see on the back here, absolutely slammed down. That there is no gap, no monster truck effect on these. So, man, well done. And we will tip it forward just a little bit here. Get you in focus if I can. And like I said, wearing my dust proud, this thing has seen a lot of track time. For the price, we have excellent radiators and grills. I think they did an awesome job on this. And again, molded in detail. Very capable of being in a child's hands and not breaking. A lot of added detail can sometimes make it difficult to maintain things as well. These are super easy to keep running. And on the rear pilot, again, we have painted handrails and steps that I did myself and added MU hoses. That's cool. Lots of good detail for the price on these. So this unit right here is the offering for the newest run. Notice we do not have ditch lights. Bit of a disappointment. I know they were not on here stock, but this also means we had a change in frame. And I think with the change in frame came with a older body design, which to me is a little less appealing than the previous run. And so as we move back here, notice there's a little less added detail. Although I do see the decal work is pretty well put together on these, but we don't like have a added handbrake. I'm also missing one of my what do they call those? The number boards, excuse me. I did apply that separately. It has since fallen out, and I just have not had the time to order more of them. It is unfortunate, but it is the way it is. As we move down on here, the one thing I will say, I do think the quality of the body panels is still pretty decent on these. But let's just take a look here. We lost the surround that would hold the frame together on this, and we have a much higher off the ground truck than we normally do on these other units. The space behind the fuel tank is not filled in as well, and we do sit a little bit higher up the ground. So we don't have that fill-in panel anymore on these. And as you can see on the fuel tank, we lost a bunch of detail. It is very clunky looking on these units, and I'm not real excited about that. Big step backwards in quality on this new run. Slightly different grill design back here. I think that's a little more scale to these earlier runs. That's fine. Same quality up top. I think we got just as good a grills on these, if I'm being honest. And I do have to say the number crispness on this unit is much better than some of the old ones. I think it really did turn out well. And as we continue back here, notice the rear pilot does not have any MU hoses, and nor does the front. So we lost a little bit of detail on some of the other stuff here. So that is kind of unfortunate. And what kind of review would this be if I didn't have 5088 in it? This is one of my favorite units. I have been running it for years. It holds a special place in my heart. This thing has been a workhorse for me since I first started N scale. Again, we got ditch lights on this. I chose not to paint the handrails on these. I just like the way they look in their current configuration. The added detail is a little bit of a weird color on this. It is what it is. Again, for the price point, you can't complain a whole lot with these. But again, the body paneling on this run just really is nice. And on the roof, we have a bunch of extra added detail that you would normally have on these Santa Fe units. And so I want to call your attention to the little swoosh right here. Notice how nice and crisp that is. And we're going to compare that to 6939 here in a minute. But man, they did a really good job on the paint with these. And look at how nice the Santa Fe looks on this. They absolutely nailed the kind of drab Santa Fe color on this. I love this unit. It really did turn out nice. And again, these older units have much more detail underneath the fuel tank and a nice closed-in area. You can see the bell. All that area is sucked in nice and tight. It looks really good. Same quality on the handrails. Again, no painted handrails or steps, and added MU hoses. And let's look at one of my oldest units here. This one has been switching on my layout for a very long time. I bought this unit used. Someone did the paint work for me, and body detail is a little lacking compared to some of those other ones. And look at the paint here. Okay, if I can get that in focus, it is much less clean on this unit. It's nice to see a little bit of step up. And then obviously the guy did a little bit of extra detailing for me. Got painted caps there. Yeah, this is just a super nice unit. I have loved this one since I got it. And there's a little added detail back there. Guy did a good job on this. Glad he decided to sell it on eBay and I could get it for a deal. Awesome engines. Let's go ahead and get them on the layout and talk a little bit about the electronics in these bad boys. So hopefully you found those visuals useful. You can see that KATO is making incremental changes over the years, cleaning some things up, getting some paint a little bit better. So that's nice to see. But let's jump into the electronics, because when it comes to a standardized chassis, if there was anything out there that I think is standardized, it is probably the KATO two-piece design. These have the most ubiquitous decoder designs. You can get offerings from NCE, Digitrax, TCS, MRC, as well as if you're looking for sound, and hopefully soon a lock pilot version, but there is lock sound boards that can all be directly interfaced with this DCC ready frame. The thing about it is, I was really hoping with 6361, the newest release, they were going to finally make these a little more capable of sound. And unfortunately, I think KATO is missing the mark with this. So I'm going to go ahead and pull some shells off and show you what I'm talking about. Okay, I've got the cab off of 7036, and this is from the previous run. And as you can see, the front end here, this is a compression fit chassis. So everything is held together with the lower frame piece. And the trucks are nice and tucked up into this unit, and we have lots of added detail. Now, as we're looking at the front here, there is nothing holding it together, and what we have is ample room for light pipes running through this area, right? This is why this was designed this way. There is also no blackout for the cab here, because everything is housed inside of the shell. And this is a much better system, in my opinion. It keeps almost all light bleed out of the windows, so all the light goes directly to the ditch lights, as well as the the upper lights or the nose lights on the Santa Fe's. And when it comes to the interface, we have a very nice, tight, tucked in decoder and very good pressure. There are some units of different vintages where you do not have enough pressure at that front clamp, and it is difficult to get a good connection. These SD40s do not deal with that. And one of the downsides of this particular frame, as we get to the back, you'll notice that we have a very shallow area for speaker install. This would have to be milled down if you're going to run a speaker down here. Also, we do have ample room in the bottom. We could potentially be running a speaker in the lower area, but that would require a lot of milling. So I would not consider this to be a sound-ready locomotive. Due to its speaker cavity back here, I just don't think you're going to get enough volume out of this, though. The other thing to look at, and mind you, this has a lot of runtime on it, we have the older generation trucks. And these I have found to be absolutely excellent. I do not have any problems with these. They don't pick up dirt. They run nice and quiet and smooth. And I have heard of other engines that have issues with gear lash, and you can get some popping and snapping. I have not found that to be the case with any of these older units. And then I should draw everyone's attention right here, if I could. Mind my Band-Aid, I'm sorry. Notice the way that the pickup wiper runs inside the chassis here. It is pinched between this point right here and comes under this back tab right here. This forces the pickup to stay in a very precise location. And then if I can get this on camera, notice as I put any weight down on the unit, that is actually the pickup tab from the wheels pressing against the wiper. So there is plenty of down pressure weight on that to maintain good connection. So these units, I do not feel need to have a wired connection between the frame and these pickups. They just work really good. And to be honest with you, I think it is because of this style down pressure that you get on the wiper that creates such a good connection. Here is the downside of the most recent release. We'll put this the same direction so we can look. This is obviously the newest generation locomotive, but it has less features because this is like a Gen 1 SD40-2. So we have slightly different body and chassis designs. So we don't have ditch lights factory on these. So that means the front end of this does not require the ditch light cutouts. So they went to an older frame design and pulled it back out of, service, I guess. The problem that comes to mind here is this is competing with a slightly older generation, and this honestly does not hold up quality wise to these particular units. Not that this is bad by any means. I have run much worse units. But if we were to ever try to add ditch lights, we do not have the cutout. It's not something you can add because this is a bolted together frame, which honestly, this makes it harder to service. If you've ever had to get into one of these older SD40-2s, you just pop the trucks off and slide the fuel tank off the bottom and you're into the locomotive and working on it. This actually requires tools to get to. The one thing I do like about it is if you are someone who uses grease, you do have easy access to your worm gear. But notice that we are running the older generation trucks. Now these are the the helicoil, whatever they're called, Gen 2s, for an SD40-2. But these are a different style truck. And to be quite frank, I don't think they look nearly as nice as the last generation. These are from an older build unit. And if you notice, our wipers here do not continue all the way out to the front frame. So there is no secondary pressure mechanism. You're only working against the pressure tab right here. And I have found this to be, I don't want to say drastically less reliable, but it's definitely not on the same level as some of these older units. This one does not switch like the units that are directly behind it, 6792 and 6939. Those are some of my best switchers. And I just can't seem to get this particular unit to run that way. And I think it has everything to do with these pickups. And the rear is the same way. Now, I will state that I am very happy about this. We have a very large cavity in the rear of this now to potentially put speakers in. So that's nice. I hope that they continue with this and maybe move to this, the frame we were just looking at with this style backing. I think that would be a much better option. But here we are. The other thing I kind of want to just show here quickly is, although this is not necessarily super visible for trackside, but we have really nice detail underneath this tank on this piece right here that's used to kind of hold the unit together. And when you roll in the brand new unit, that looks pretty cheesy and fake, and I'm not real excited about that, especially since this model is the same price as all of the other ones. I would think if we're taking a step back on quality, we should be getting a bit of a price advantage, and I'm just not seeing that. So that's basically everything I have to say about the frame. Let's go ahead and start talking about electronics. Okay, so let's talk about electronics and runnability. So if anybody has frequented my channel for any number of years now, I have dozens of hours of footage of most of these units running. I feature them regularly as kind of backup engines in my pre-review runs. I have them in my clips daily. They're all over the place on my channel, and if that gives you any indication on how much I like these, I really like these units. They all function pretty darn well, and there is a reason for that. I have shifted my entire KATO collection over to TCS decoders. And I found out years ago when I was doing my pulling test, with these two engines right here, that the type of decoder is very important for the runability of these units. So with that said, I have tried them with NCE decoders, and they do function pretty well. And I've tried them with Digitrax, and for the most part, I can get them to run decently. But when you put a TCS decoder in these, they really do come alive. And I have since kind of changed some of my default CVs on these, so I'll just list them off for anybody who wants to. If just do a quick setup on these, and I think you'll really like the way they run. If you start with CV2, set it at 5. 3 and 4 set for 20. CV6 I set for 25, and CV5 I set for 80, and that gets me pretty prototypical running characteristics out of these, kind of slow up till your mid speed, and then you can actually get up to some decent road speeds past that. And you'll definitely want to set your CV61, I believe, to 17 to give you dimming front lights. And if you do that, these really turn into high quality, sub $150 engines. They do function at the top tier in that price point, right? Because you're looking at about an $80 to $90 engine and roughly a $50 decoder for a TCS. And so at that price point, you're like $130 to $140. And for that, there's nothing else on the market currently that can compete with these. With these TCS decoders installed, you do get the benefit of more pulling power for weight than other engines in their class. And so that comes to the excellent back EMF that you get from those TCS decoders. Not to mention the headlights are impeccable, especially on the BN units. That top headlight and just right there next to the LED on that board, it is just eye piercing, and I love it. It is top quality LED when you're looking at those. And even in my my running videos where I have my studio lighting running, it's difficult to see a lot of LEDs. These things really stand out and are bright. And so that's something that's really nice. So if you're going to look into electronics, I would really recommend considering a TCS decoder. Now, if you're looking to put sound into these, we kind of just talked about there's going to be milling involved. And I have ran these just to kind of play with on the ESU stuff. And I have found that the things that I find with TCS also cross over to ESU. So one of the reasons I standardized my entire line to TCS or ESU decoders is because I hate speed matching. And these are kind of the units I cut my teeth on. I have a lot of them. And so you want them all to run together a lot in like unit trains. That was something that when I was growing up, you had a lot of SD40s and a lot of like GP50s all kind of lashed up. There was a lot of head end power on trains coming through my area. It's not like today where you just see a couple ES44ACs and rock and roll. There was like 5 or 6 engines a lot of times at the front of these trains. So when I lash these up, I want some power at the head end. I want to see 4 or 5 of these things pulling hard. So they have to be well speed matched with one another. I struggled and I struggled and I struggled with NCE decoders and Digitrax decoders, trying to get them to work together, trying to get them all to mesh well, trying to keep them speed matched at all the different levels. I can drop a TCS decoder in any one of these, any generation. All of these come from different time frames, different batches, different runs. They all use exactly the same CV settings and for the most part run perfectly with one another. Don't have to mess with any of your back EMF. You don't have to do anything. They just work out of the box when you use a standard set of CVs. And when it comes to time saving, I'm just to that point in my life. I'm done dicking around trying to get everything to work properly. I just want things to be easy and fun. And doing that makes these easy and fun. It also comes back to I have not put enough time on this unit to speak to its reliability. It's not as slow speed good as these particular units, but it's close. You can do quite a bit with this up to a point when it comes to slow speed. All of these other units with a TCS decoder installed have excellent slow speed control. They maintain a slow speed under load, and they pull a decent amount of cars. And that means fun for me on the other end. I get to do everything I want to do for a very affordable price, and you don't have to worry about dinking around with your electronics trying to get these to run well together. So I have to tell you, if you're really looking at doing these, invest in that TCS system. You're really gonna like it. Now with the ESU system, like I said, you can do the same thing where you just dump in a standard set of CVs and they do run pretty well. I tried to get sound to run in these, and frankly, I just didn't like the tone I was getting out of it. And maybe in the future I will do some milling, but maybe this could be an option. I'm running into some issues with the scale trains units that were going to be my sound ones, and we'll talk about that next week. But honestly, for a silent running, cheap locomotive, these are going to be your jam. So, what are my recommendations? What would you do if you wanted to get into some of these? Well, frankly, you can't go wrong. I would probably stay away from the versions that don't have ditch lights and go find an older run that do. I just like the way they look better. I like the idea of the frame a whole lot better. And I'm just not ready to put sound in these yet. So for me, I think that's the way I want to go. And I kind of have the scale trains options that I'm looking into for sound locomotives when it comes to the SD40-2. So honestly, these are like the budget king right now. And frankly, I'm not sure why KATO doesn't offer these in the starter set. As much as I like the ES44AC, it struggles with a lot more problems than these do. Although, like I talked about when we were looking up close and personal on these have microtrains couplers to make them a little more yard usable. You still can use the original couplers, especially with other KATO rolling stock. They do function pretty darn well, and they're very scale. The ES44 has some finickiness that you're going to run into. It's got a long rear coupler that likes to decouple, and frankly, its height is a little bit off for a lot of aftermarket rolling stock, and so it can be a little more finicky for a beginner. So I really think this is where they should be looking, because you want to talk about reliability, runability, the the capability to use this in all applications, meaning road work, switching, whatever you want to do. You have seen an SD40-2 do it in the prototype. So you could even possibly put this together in kind of an old school passenger type setup and maybe get away with it and be able to sell starter kits that way. I think that would be a really cool option. So, KATO, if you're listening to me, I think I'd be interested in something like that. And for the end user, I've got 6 of these. So obviously go out and buy some. But man, put that TCS decoder in there. These second or like a run ago or so, these units are so good. You're gonna have so much fun with them. And if anybody is looking to get someone involved in the hobby, gift something like this to them. This is going to be the way to get more people involved in railroading, because these are so trouble free. They're just going to enjoy every moment running them, and that's kind of what everybody needs right now. So, some minor problems aside, these are one of the best units you're going to find, and I think you can't go wrong buying them. So, with that said, have a good day, everybody. Bye now.